Thank you, Mary, so much. That was amazing. She's such a sweet teacher of the word. So we're going to conclude today with Naghmeh coming back up to share all the rest of the book of Psalms. Right? You're going to do all of them? In like 45 minutes. We're going to, however the Lord leads. So welcome again, Naghmeh Abedini.
I know you're tired. It'll be short. So I will. Well, I usually when I speak, then I can relax and listen to the other speakers because I'm done. But this one, it was like I was nervous at the beginning of the day. I was nervous throughout the whole day, and then so it's okay. It's interesting. I was struggling with fear. Every time I come to speak, I struggle with fear. And the Lord has, when I was preparing for this message, the Lord spoke to me about speaking to you about fear. It's something I've always struggled with, and I want to speak about that. I'm speaking on Psalm 27. As I mentioned earlier, growing up in a war, I think that's where my fear started. But I've always struggled with fear. But when Saeed was taken, and I've had fear over everything from a lot of what ifs. I lived in a lot of what ifs. Nothing bad happened to my family in the war, but there was a lot of what ifs. What if I lose my mom? What if I lose as a child? And I grew up, even through my marriage, fear of what if I lose my husband? What if I lose my children? What if someone I love has to struggle with, disease or cancer or something? I've had a lot of family pass away from cancer, and have my grandparents, aunts, uncles, everyone. And it's just fear of things and loss, especially human life, people I love. But then also fear of finances. The future, the kids, fear of airplanes, fear of speaking in front of public, anything you can possibly think of, I've been afraid of. And when Saeed was taken and I got the call, he left in June of 2012 and he was supposed to come back July. And I got a call from him in July saying they're not letting me leave the country. And then in September, so he was under house arrest for a few months, and then in September I got the call, the worst call of my life, where Saeed's mom called me and she said they've taken, she was hysterical, she was just beside herself, because the way he was taken by 5 Revolutionary Guards that are, they're like the ISIS of Iran. They're a terrorist group. They're the most radical group they're controlled by the supreme leader, the religious leader, which has a higher authority than the president of Iran. And so when he was taken by them, and we didn't know where he was, we thought the way they took him, his parents, his mom who called me, thought they'd killed him. And so we didn't know where he was. When I got the call, I felt like my worst fears came to life. From anything from someone being taken from me, to being a single mom, to having to see my kids in pain. And I have always just been able to cope through trials without clinging or abiding completely in Christ. I've been able to cope by talking to people, by, just being in my own bubble and wallowing and being sad and whatever. I've found ways to cope, but this was so horrible. It was just such a deep, dark place of despair that I remember my mom, who I could talk to her about anything and feel better, knelt in front of me, and she was crying and crying. She said, "How can I help you?" And I realized the place I'm at right now, inside of me, it's like I can't explain this dark place I'm at. No human being can help me. And just the fear. I mean, imagine having always had dealt with fear and anxiety, and then boom, a trial like that happens. The enemy wanted me destroyed. I mean, I can just say I was at the point of just losing it, just But I remember in that moment, I thought, I can't. I have 2 kids. They can't lose a dad and a mom. Like, I was just ready to check out of life and just be like, I can't take this. This is too much burden on me right now. I can't deal with it. It's too much. Again, I didn't know if he was dead or alive for a week. We just knew they'd taken him. We didn't know he was even in prison. About a week into it, I knew that my Saeed's parents' home in Tehran, capital of Iran, that was checked. And so I called. I knew the government was listening to it, and I said, if I don't know where Saeed is, if I don't know if he's alive, I will go to media with this. And within a couple hours after that call, Saeed called and said, I'm in Evin prison, and I'm in solitary confinement, but I'm okay. And, you know, there's just Saeed's story on its own. It's just another story of the things he's gone through from solitary confinement, where you're in a hole, dark hole by yourself 24 hours a day. They take you to the restroom once. You don't have anyone to talk to. You don't have any distractions. And a lot of people go crazy in the psychological warfare. And then from that, he would be taken and tortured and interrogated for months and months until in January. He was from September of 2012 until January of 2013 when he was finally sentenced to 8 years. They put him in the prison where there was other people and there was more people. And during the first months, he was in solitary for about a month, and then he was in another smaller cell where 2 others, and then but those few months were the most intense of interrogation. So Saeed's story on its own is it's a story of great suffering, but great testimonies of God's grace and keeping him and giving him joy. The letters that have come out of that prison, I encourage you to read it. He's written letters that is just like, it just encourages me knowing that, seeing the intimacy he has with Christ and how he tries to minister to his children from behind the prison walls. He's written some emotional birthday messages to my kids. My son just celebrated his 7th birthday. Last time he saw his dad, he was 4. And in it, you know, Saeed tells him that even though he's not there, there's a I am who I am that's with him, that's there with him. My daughter, she had celebrated her 8th birthday, and her last birthday she saw him was 5. She had questioned why Jesus isn't answering prayers, and Saeed wrote a letter saying the answer to the why is who. It's Jesus Christ, and he's worth the price. And just, he's been trying to, I guess, pour into our kids spiritually from afar, and he's written some great letters talking about the joy of the Lord being his strength. And so that's Saeed's part. My part, just getting the worst message of my life and falling into this deep spiral of fear and anxiety, and I don't know who has experienced, I'm sure a lot of you have, this deep, dark place of despair where you realize no human being can get you out of that. And my realization came when I realized my mom can't even get me out of that. Usually she could. Usually I could talk to her, and I reached out to Jesus, and Jesus just, I felt like the woman bleeding for 12 years. I just reached out and said, God, you got to help me. My husband needs me. My children need me. I can't check out of life. I want to be in this, close the doors, close the windows, just hide in my room and just sleep, take medication, something just to numb the pain. But I can't, and I need you. And that's when I just felt this peace beyond understanding wash over me. Now, as you know, we are in a fallen nature, our flesh. So, when that peace washed over me that day when I heard the news, it's not that I overcame fear all of a sudden. I deal with it on a daily basis. Every day there's things that we deal with on a daily basis that every day we have to go to God and say, take it, Lord. Give me that peace. And his grace is sufficient for you every single morning. Every single morning I get up, there's there's times where I'm just very anxious and I just cry out to God, and he's right there ministering to me. David said in Psalm 27, the Lord is my light and my salvation. I wonder why he starts that way. You have to remind yourself that he's the light when you're in such darkness, when you don't know where you're going to go. When I became a single mom, all of a sudden, I didn't know what my next step was. You realize when Saeed was around, I realized we were planning a life together. And then when he was taken, I felt like I didn't have a plan. You can't, when your partner's taken, when your best friend, is taken, your husband, it's all of a sudden, I don't know, it's just you can't plan. You don't want to plan. The future doesn't look, I don't know how to explain it, but it just seems so dark and vague. And what now? What does life look like now? It has always been certain, it was centered around Saeed and our family, and then Saeed's taken. It's like, what does our life look like now? So it's such darkness, but David says he's my light. Light gives direction. Light gives the next step. Light shows the path. And my salvation, there's times where here David needs a saving, not just salvation in Jesus, but saving, where you need a savior. You need someone to save you from this place you're at. And then, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, where you feel so weak. I've felt so weak most days that I feel like I can't even stand up. The smallest drama that would happen in my life, if I had the smallest drama with Saeed or the kids, I would just check out of life. I couldn't talk to people. I definitely wouldn't want to go to church, wouldn't want to stand in front of people. It's just I couldn't function. And most days I feel that way. How can I even stand up in front of people and talk? I feel so weak. And David is saying that Lord is the strength of his life, because obviously he's feeling weak. And repeatedly he says, who shall I fear? Because fear traps you, gets you. And for when Saeed was taken, I realized all my fears came to life. And I realized of all the things I was afraid of. And I discovered Christ in such a deep, intimate way that for the first time in my life, I was released of all fear. I was always afraid to even say, what if I lose my kids? Because I would think if I say it, it might happen. I was even afraid to say some things negative, but I've been freed to say, you know what? I reached such a low in my life that I discovered Christ in such a deep, intimate way that I feel like if I lose everything, I will be okay. I know I will be okay, not just okay. And before, I couldn't say that. I knew Christ. I loved Christ. I served with Saeed in Iran. I met him in 2002. We married in 2004. From 2002 until 2005, when we left Iran, a couple thousand Muslims had given their hearts to Christ. The church was growing. We had churches, 100 house churches in 30 cities in Iran. We'd gone through trials. We'd been arrested. I had guns pointed to my head, told if I don't deny Christ, I would be killed. And the Lord had just miraculously saved us from the persecution and the arrests we'd gone through in Iran. We'd come to the U.S. But I just realized this is why I need notes, because then I lose track. But I realized in the back of my mind there was always a fear that I had never dealt with until Saeed was taken. And I was always afraid to even say things that it might happen. And I was afraid of being a single mom. I was afraid of something bad happening to my kids, a disease or something, and losing a kid, or I can't even tell you all the fears that trapped me. Saeed would ask me to travel with him when we were in the U.S., and I would say no. I was afraid of leaving my kids even for one day. It might sound insane to some of you, but I was afraid to even the idea. I would get anxious to even think about leaving the kids for like one day, or and I was just fearful about a lot of things and anxious about a lot of things. But when I discovered Christ, I had nothing in the world. I couldn't get by anymore. I was bent to a point where I needed Jesus desperately. And the trial was too much for me to just get by through going to different sources and people and trying to fix it through other ways. I needed Jesus. And so when I discovered Jesus in such a way, I realized I can be okay if my life is taken, if my loved ones are taken, my family's taken, my mom is taken, my dad's taken, finances are taken, I'm out in the street, I have disease, I will be okay. I never really knew that. But I can say I know I will be okay because I have Jesus. I'll be more than okay. I'll be happy. I'll have joy, and I will have peace. And I don't know how to explain it, but I hadn't really known that before until I hit the bottom and realized Jesus is the rock right there. And it's okay. Life, my biggest fears could happen, and I will be okay. And I was freed from fear for the first time. And so here's David talking about the Lord being his light in this darkness. He's showing him the path. He's his salvation. He's strength. Why should he even be afraid? He keeps repeating that because he's obviously afraid. He's reminding of himself of who God is. Who should I fear? He's the strength of my life. I'm weak, but he's the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked came against me to eat up my flesh, my enemies and foes, they stumbled and fell. He's reminding himself, even though there's things against him, they've never touched him. Though an army may encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. You know how your heart can just feel so weak? The war may rise against me, in this I will be confident. So why is he so confident? Why is he not afraid when there's war against him, when there's things against him? His life is in danger. People want his life. They're conspiring against him. I think it's found in the verses 4 on. He's looking to one thing and one thing only. He's saying, one thing I have desired of the Lord. When I realized that everything from me could be taken and I would still be okay, there was one thing I was afraid of losing. It's like one prayer I would pray over and over again. I've shared it on my social media before. Cast me not away from thy presence, O Lord. But, just don't leave me. That was like, I can be okay with you, Jesus, but just don't ever leave me. And that's where David is talking about. It says, one thing I desire, and he will never, and that's the one thing, he will never leave you. And that's what David is saying. It says, one thing I've desired of the Lord, that I will seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. I just want to be in the house of God all the days, every single day of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. And then, so he says, I just want to be under the shelter of God. I just want to be in his presence all the time, because you know what? When the time of trouble comes, he shall hide me in his pavilion. In his tabernacle, he shall hide me in the secret place. So he's my covering. He will hide me. He will put me on a rock. The enemy can't reach me. He says, the same verse 5, he shall set me high upon a rock. And now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me. Therefore, so he has enemies, but he's hidden in God. So I want you to learn to really be truthful to yourself about your fears. What it is you think, what if this happened? I will question God. What if this happened? I might walk away from God. What if this happened? I don't know if I could take it. The one thing you're holding dear and you're afraid of losing. And I want you to think about that. And I want you to learn to go in his presence and just be free from your fears. And just say, I just want to be in your presence, Lord. And hide me. And then he says, therefore, he has all these things surrounding him. He says, therefore, I will offer sacrifice of joy. He's saying, the enemies are covering him. He's inside of this God's protection, and he's offering joy. He's offering sacrifice of joy. It doesn't make sense. And he's saying, I will sing. Yes, I will sing. It doesn't make sense, but he says, yes, I will sing. As Mary said, I will praise the Lord, in this situation, because he's learned to go to the presence of God, and he knows that that's all he needs. And life, we might question God, but the truth is we're in a fallen world. There's disease, there's death, there's destruction. There's people we can't control out in the world, and also within our own family. A lot of times fear and anxiety comes, to be honest, from our own husbands or family, because they're trying to lead a certain way, and we are freaking out because we have a different idea of where we should go. A lot of my fear and anxiety in marriage came because, as Mary said, when you marry, you're supposed to submit yourself, and I didn't know if that was, I was told Saeed that during our engagement and marriage, my main responsibility was first to argue to make sure he was really making the right choices. And, you know, I always, on major issues, it was just, I had to argue first, and then when I couldn't get my way, then I let him lead, and I held a grudge and was like, okay. But, you know, a lot of our anxiety comes from people, other situations around the world and people in our life that are trying to lead us, and we're like, no, that's, you know, I don't want to do there, I don't want to go there, and I don't want to do that, and other people dictating our life. But David had learned to just go in the presence of the Lord, and just all this drama, just to be okay, and just, you know what, Lord, I just need you. Just, there's one thing I seek, just to be in your presence all the days of my life. And he says, I will sing. In verse 6, it says, you know, I will give you sacrifice of joy in his tabernacle. I will sing. Yes, I will sing praises to the Lord. Because he's in his presence. And he's beholding the beauty of God. And there's nothing but praise coming out. And the situations around don't matter anymore. And, you know, he goes on to say, hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice, have mercy also upon me and answer me. When you said, seek my face, my heart said to you, your face, Lord, I will seek. So the Lord is saying, seek my face, and David is saying, I will, Lord, I will. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. That's been my prayer this year. It's just like, Lord, I just need you, you know, when my world is falling apart. And I've had a lot of bad news in the last 3 years. It's not like I heard Said was taken and then it was done. It was 8-year sentence. My kids would be teenagers. And then I've heard, because he's shared the gospel in prison, the Iranian government might add on years to him or give him, that carries the death penalty in itself. And so it's just news after news. And then I was just talking about when we heard he was moved to the murder ward of this exile, he was exiled because he was sharing the gospel in the first prison. When we heard he was in the murder ward, I remember Said's mom just being like, why? Why would God do this to him? Was that not enough? And we couldn't understand. He was covered with lice, and he was just really sick. His dad got to see him, and his mom was like, I don't understand why. And when we start hearing testimonies, we're like, okay, Lord, even one person is worth Said going to that prison for. He says, just don't leave me. Don't forsake me. Verse 9, do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my help. You know, he relies on the Lord. Do not leave me nor forsake me, O God of my salvation. You know, this verse, I feel like some of you have had maybe loved ones forsake you. It says, when my father and my mother forsake me. You know, we have sometimes one of our greatest pains is that the ones we love the most are the ones that are forsaking us. It could be in a marriage even. The one who you depend on most is isolating you. It could be even your own parents. But David has learned, he says, then the Lord, when my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take care of me. So he's learned to hide in the presence of the Lord and just go under his covering, just be okay with being abandoned, being forsaken, being attacked by enemy, from all of that. And he's found that place where I was forced to find where I'm not really afraid of anything anymore. I'm not afraid of loss. I'm not afraid of anything, but I'm just like, Jesus, just don't ever leave me. And he won't. And that's the good news. That's the one thing I don't have to be afraid of, because he will not leave me. He's been there, as I'm sure in Andrea's life too. Every single day you wake up and you think, am I going to make it? And he's right there holding you up. And then, you know, verse 11 says, teach me your ways. And then talks about false witnesses. I want to finish with this, and I feel like the Lord wanted me to finish a little bit earlier, because I feel like there might be some people here, even one, who you've not put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ. And I want to give that opportunity when there's the worship team up here to come up, and I want to pray for you. So, you know what? The truth is that we're in a fallen world, and things don't go the way we think. And there's disease, there's death, there's trials. As you get older, the older you get, the more you realize how much life is not. When you're younger, you're excited to live and count and plan. And as you get older, you realize life is hard. because we're in a fallen world, and disease comes with it, death comes with it, and we're living with fallen people. So our fleshes are going against each other, where we want to protect ourselves, and that person, we're all selfish. And really the only time where we can be unified and there could be any beauty is when we can get rid of our fallen nature and allow Jesus to shine. You know, Jesus, his last prayer for us was for unity, because it's really impossible without Christ to be unified. You have to get rid of yourself. And Jesus said that through our unity, the world will know that God sent him. It's just amazing. When we can get rid of ourselves and love and be unified, then the world gets a revelation of Jesus Christ. The world gets it. Oh, yeah, Jesus Christ was sent by God. The world understands Christ when we can be unified and through our love. And that's the one thing Jesus prayed for us. Unity. May they be one as we are one, that the world may know that you sent me. And so I want to, this world is fallen. We're fallen people, but there's one answer. It's not a religion. It's not any religion. At its best, it's a list of do's and don'ts. And Jesus is a relationship. And so, Jesus is the only one that says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He's the only one that promises relationship with God, because he paid the price on the cross. And he's the only one that says, I know where I'm going, and you can come with me. So some of you might have grown up even in a Christian family, but might have religion. You might have never accepted Jesus into your heart as your Lord and Savior. I just feel bad about leaving this place without having offered that to you and prayed that with you. So after I finish, I want to ask the worship team to come up, and I can ask you guys to stand up, and those who want to give their hearts to Jesus can just walk forward, and I'll pray with you. But I want to finish with this. Fear. So we talked about fear, how when you just engulf yourself in Jesus just all the days of your life, every day, like every day I have to be in Jesus. That's my only way of survival. I'm like, if this is how it's going to be until I get to heaven, then so be it. I can't breathe without Jesus. I can't talk without Jesus. I can't walk without Jesus. And I have the joy and the peace that the world is starving for in that presence. And I'm okay. And I can offer it to the world because I'm tasting it. I know what I'm talking about. It's not just, in my head. I'm tasting Jesus daily and enjoying him. So fear can be overcome when you go to the house of the Lord and you're just covered by him. No matter what's happening in your life, who's trying to control what, who's trying to mess up your life, who's causing gossip, who's doing this and that, it doesn't matter. All the drama will just fade away when you go into the presence of God. And all the fear of loss, of what if this happens, and what if that happens, and what if this person makes this choice, and this could happen, and all of that just goes away. And then the other thing is the last verse that the Lord has actually spoken to me the last few weeks, and I've shared it again on my social media. It says, wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. So I want to emphasize on this, because I felt like the Lord wanting you free from fear, but also the Lord wanting you to know how to wait. When I was actually reading Isaiah 40, verse 30. And it says, even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. And I was reading this as part of my quiet time, and I was like, what? Those who wait on the Lord renew their strength? I'm exhausted waiting. I'm like, I wait and wait. I'm like, oh, Lord, I'm done. Just get it over. You know, when you're waiting and there's a trial in your life happening, someone you love is in pain, you feel like you're getting weaker in the waiting. But the secret of the waiting, when I read that, I felt like, because I'd just been complaining to the Lord about waiting and being so tired. And I was like, how is it that those who wait on the Lord, the secret is on being waiting on the Lord, is the Lord. They shall, renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. This is like someone who's waiting. Have you yourself or someone who's waiting for something? Do they seem really energized and strengthened? I didn't. I felt really weak. Like, I'm done. It's been almost 3 years of running around and doing things. I want my husband out. But the Bible says those who wait on the Lord actually renew their strength. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. They're strong. But where does the strength comes from? The verses above, verse 28 of Isaiah 40 says, have you not known, have you not heard, the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, neither faints nor is weary. It's interesting, he uses the word faint and weary that he says on verse 28, and he uses the same word on verse 31 where he says, 30 where it says, those who wait on the Lord, or 31, it says, they shall run but not be weary. They shall walk but not faint. So when you go to the source, who the everlasting God, the creator of the earth, neither faints nor is weary. When you go to the source, you're not going to be faint or you're not going to go weary. And he says in verse 29, he gives strength, he gives power to the weak. So to those who have no might, he increases strength. So the source, when you go to the source, you can wait and be strong and have energy in the waiting and not be weak and tired. And the same thing that as Psalm 27 ends with, it says, wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. So it's the waiting. I just want to, I felt the Lord wanting me to share about fear, letting go of fear, and waiting on him, but waiting in the right way, waiting in his tabernacle, waiting in his presence, where you're getting filled and you're getting strong, you're not getting weak, and you're not growing weary, but you're going strong and you're not growing faint. And that's where he wants to, he wants to take you into a deeper walk with him, where there's no fear. We're seeing so much news about Christian persecution, and is it coming to us, and what is it the end times? Those shouldn't cause us to fear. Those should cause us to draw closer to Jesus and just cling to him and be a light, drink of his presence and have so much peace and so much joy and so much strength, and say, you know what, world, I have what you're looking for. It's not found in drugs. It's not found in defining your sexuality. It's not found in marriage. As Andrea said, another person cannot make you happy. If you think you can find it in another person, it's not true. It's really found in God and the hole we have in our hearts that only God can fill. And once that's full, we were made to be in communion with God, and that can only be done through Jesus Christ, and asking Jesus into our hearts and accepting his forgiveness of sin for the price he paid on the cross. And so once we enter into that communion, then we're full, then we're good. And that's what David had discovered. David had discovered to go into the presence of God, to really cry out to him, be real, and just be okay. And so we are in a fallen world where we have fallen nature, people with their fallen nature around us, which provokes our fallen nature to come out. There's a lot of selfish people out there, and we're selfish. And when we get attacked, it's been 3 years of intensity for me, because, of course, being in the public eye is good. I have a lot of prayer and support, but I've had a lot of attacks and threats, and I've had a lot of, why did he go back to Iran? We hope he rots in that prison. But I've had the whole world knows about him, so there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions. And so, but I've had to just just get my strength from the Lord and just continue and not grow weary and not grow faint. And so the world, and when the attacks come on me, I want to defend myself. My anger comes out, and I want to spew out answers, and I want to defend. And the Lord's just like, hold it in, say it to me, and just come to me. And so when we live with people with fallen nature, our fallen nature wants to come out and defend ourselves and protect ourselves as well. But all the secret of being free from fear and not growing weary in the waiting for whatever you're waiting is being in the Lord and learning to do that. And the Lord is like me. I was so stubborn. This trial had to force me into that intimacy. And the Lord is using situations and people in your life to say, just come to me. That situation may never change, that person may never change, but come to me. I'm using it I'm using it to draw you close to me. One of my favorite verses is 2 Corinthians 12, verses 8 through 10, where Paul says, he has a thorn, he wants this thorn gone. And God says, no, my grace is sufficient for you. And then Paul says, therefore I take pleasure in infirmities. And I just want you to chew on that when you have time. Why does Paul take pleasure in sicknesses and distress and need and persecution and all of this? Paul says, I take pleasure because when I'm weak, then I'm strong, because he's discovering the strength of Christ. He's discovering the reality of who Jesus is. And ultimately, that's what we're made for, to know that intimacy, to know that relationship. And for me, I know that this last 3 years have caused me had pushed me, forced me into a deeper intimacy with Christ. I know they've done that for Saeed. The letter he writes, knowing how Jesus is all he has. Like the 21 martyrs, Jesus, you're all we have. And my kids, I'm teaching them, I've thought, what do I want to leave behind for my kids? And I was just talking to my mom about it. That life is hard, but just focus on Jesus. There's going to be storms and there's going to be waves in life and relationships and drama, but just keep your eyes on him and you're going to be okay. You can walk on water. And that's what I want to teach my kids, just daily, just embrace yourself in the presence of God and it's going to be okay. So I want to ask the worship team to come up, and is that okay? And I just sitting there and I felt like, you know what? I just can't leave without giving an invitation. So I want you to stand up. Sorry. And I want to ask, as they're worshiping, I want to ask you to come forward. If you want to make that commitment of giving your heart to Jesus and really experiencing the relationship with God. And when you come forward, and then we'll pray for you. And yeah, okay.